One of the important schools of thought in the pre-Socratic era is the Atomist doctrine. The pioneers of this school are the thinkers known as the Atomists. In this section, we will discuss the doctrine developed by the Atomists, Leucippus and especially Democritus, and the concepts specific to this doctrine. Democritus's atoms. In the pre-Socratic era, great strides had been made in the field of thought since the Milesian school, thanks to Heraclitus, Parmenides, Empedocles, and Anaxagoras. Especially with Greek words translated into languages like Turkish, carrying deep meanings such as love, hate, being, becoming, corruption, movement, stillness, change, immutability. Four elements, a unique language began to emerge. It was Leucippus and Democritus who accelerated the development of this period, which were the last natural philosophers, because both of them pioneered the emergence and development of a doctrine known as atomism. This doctrine would take its place in the philosophical scene after the time of Aristotle, and laid the foundation for the views of the famous philosopher Epicurus, one of the important representatives of Hellenistic philosophy, and his followers on God, the universe, and ethics. They also both enriched the vocabulary of Greek philosophy in general and made great contributions to modern science, especially the chemistry and physics of the 19th and 20th centuries. We do not have as much information about Leucippus of Miletus or Elea, who lived in the middle of the 5th century BC, as we do about his student Democritus of Abdera. Epicurus even said that he did not know such a philosopher, and even that such a philosopher never existed. However, Aristotle and Theophrastus accept Leucippus as the founder of the Atomist doctrine. For this reason, it is thought that Leucippus's teaching was integrated with Democritus's teaching, and that his views lived on in Democritus's thoughts. Democritus, who developed the atomic theory by drawing on the views of his teacher, was also a good mathematician and natural scientist. It is said that he, like Anaxagoras, went to Athens in pursuit of knowledge, but was not recognized by anyone there. He even describes the situation in his own words: "I went to Athens and saw that no one knew me." Democritus went not only to Athens to acquire knowledge, but also to Egypt, Iran, Babylon, Ethiopia, especially staying in Egypt for a long time, and then returned to Abdera. During these travels, he saw many cities, got to know many different cultures, and had the opportunity to listen to famous people. Thus, according to Democritus, who had a universal knowledge and therefore deserved the title of wise, the universe consists of two basic parts, atoms and void, or space. These two are the two great truths of the universe. Because the entire universe is made up of material particles, which he called atoms, and the void, space, that allows them to move. The atom in Democritus's mind, that is the Greek word atomos, consists of the combination of the words a, negative prefix, plus tomos, which means indivisible or indivisible. Atoms are the end of reality, physically indivisible, indestructible, impenetrable basic elements. In other words, they are the smallest invisible building blocks of matter. Atoms are eternal and eternal, that is, they are not created and cannot be destroyed. This is a principle that, in modern terms, will form the basis of the law of conservation of matter. Atoms are also infinite in number and shape. They all come from the same essence. They are homogeneous, but they differ from each other in their shape, order, position, and size. They are all bodies. Moreover, they are all continuous within themselves and never change. That is, it is not possible for there to be a change, a movement within the atom itself. This means there is no movement within the atom itself. Its properties do not change, its essence does not change. What we call motion is the displacement of the atom. So only the inside of the atom, or the atom alone, is closed to all movements, all changes and all properties. However, when they are set in motion, they bring with them all kinds of formations, all kinds of changes and all kinds of properties. The concept of void is an infinite space between atoms. In other words, for Democritus, void is an unlimited space that allows the infinite number of atoms that make up existence to move. That is, if there were no space, Greek topos, which Democritus saw as a void, Latin vacuum, an interval, there would be no area for atoms to move. Therefore, atoms would not be able to make the movements they make by interlocking and separating from each other, and as a result, they would not be able to create their existence. Since such a thing would not be possible, it means that the void space is real. Because atoms can only move freely in such an unlimited space, sometimes they interlock with each other, resembling a bunch of grapes. Sometimes they collide and scatter, and as a result, they lead to the birth of different beings, and thus to the formation of the entire universe. Democritus's doctrine of void, space, is a stance against the ideas and paradoxes developed by Parmenides and especially Zeno that motion cannot exist. Because, as stated before, according to Parmenides and his followers, if it is considered that every movement would require a void, then nothing can exist, because there is no such thing as void. However, as can be seen, Democritus gives an answer to their doctrine by putting forward and proving the idea of void. Sensory perceptions. Democritus's thoughts on sensory perception are also noteworthy, because according to him, the sweetness, bitterness, and similar feelings that we perceive with our senses are completely things that people name, because it is not possible for them to exist in nature. Since everything that exists in nature is atoms and void, the things that will cause these feelings, that is, things like sweet, bitter, hot, cold, color, hard, soft, are illusions. The fact that we give names to things in this way is a situation that arises from the shape and size or smallness of atoms. Objects, consisting of atoms of different shapes and sizes, acquire qualities according to these different properties of the atoms that make them up. Shape and size are the invisible, imperceptible basic properties of the atom, but when they form an object, a perceptible situation arises. So we can only see and feel the properties of the object. In clearer terms, qualities such as sweetness, bitterness, coldness, warmth, color, etc., are properties belonging to the object. Therefore, these are not the natural properties of atoms, but secondary properties. There are a wide variety of atom shapes: round, flat, sphere, cube, hook, and so on. Atoms of different shapes form objects of different qualities. This difference of objects is determined according to the shape, arrangement, and positions of the atoms. For example, fire atoms have a structure that moves much faster than other atoms in terms of shape. Likewise, soul atoms have a very similar structure to fire atoms. Therefore, it can move freely in the body in all directions quickly and can also move the body. The atoms of the inhaled air are also flat and very mobile. Therefore, these atoms that make up the air are similar to fire atoms. Since everything is made up of atoms, our sense organs are undoubtedly made up of atoms. The event we call sensation is an event that occurs as a result of atoms coming from objects hitting our sense organs. If we consider that a pepper consists of hook-shaped atoms and our tongue consists of round atoms, it is clear that the hooked structure of the pepper will cause a certain irritation in our tongue during sensation and leave a bitter taste. Similarly, if we consider that sugar consists of flat, that is, smooth and slippery atoms, it is clear that sugar will cause less irritation in our tongue and give us a pleasant taste. Therefore, the secondary qualities that the atoms of objects acquire due to their shape, order, and position are nothing more than impressions they evoke in us, therefore their being sweet, bitter, soft, hard, etc. are our own subjective thoughts. These thoughts are just assumptions, conjectures, opinions, names, nothing else. In short, sensations about secondary qualities are deceptive. Yet Democritus is not a thinker who has completely removed sensory perception from his philosophy. Because when reason comes into play and correct interpretations are made, sensory perception is also among the channels that can provide information to man. Because we feel objects with our sense organs, but we cannot feel atoms and void with sensory perception. An oar immersed in water may appear broken to our eye, but this is not true. Because when we take it out of the water, we understand that it is not broken and we can interpret it correctly. But we can never see the atoms that make up the ore. So, while Democritus argues that sensory perceptions can mislead man in terms of knowledge, he does not completely push aside the senses. Or rather, he does not act like a purely rational thinker. On the soul. The doctrine of the soul is also interesting among Democritus's teachings. According to him, the soul, unlike the atoms that make up the body, is made up of thin, flat, round atoms. These atoms are very mobile, slippery fluid and very fast-moving atoms, and as we said before, they resemble fire atoms. Thanks to this feature of theirs, the soul enables the body to perform all kinds of movements. The soul is the most important part of a human being and the center of his happiness. This view will shape Democritus's understanding of morality. The body continues its life as a result of the constant exchange of soul atoms with air atoms, and death occurs when this relationship is broken, because the atoms of the soul can no longer be nourished by the atoms of air. According to Democritus, the greatest feature of the soul is its ability to acquire knowledge. Knowledge is nothing more than a result of the bumping and striking movements of atoms. The atoms that flow from the object we perceive to our sense organs and hit them create an impression in our sense organs. Thus, sensation or perception occurs. However, because those who have these senses have different structures, atoms can lead to different perceptions when they hit the sense organ. In other words, the same bumping event can cause different sensations. Nevertheless, Democritus is a thinker who believes that common sensory perceptions should also emerge from common sensory organs. That is, some opinions such as sweet, bitter, should be the same for every human being. Although Democritus does not have a doctrine that clearly reveals the relationship between sensation or perception and reason and thinking, it is clear that he thinks there is a certain distinction between sensory perception and reason, and that he always prefers reason to sensation. If we want to understand Democritus's understanding of morality based on his views on the soul and the acquisition of knowledge, the greatest help to us is that the fragments from him that deal with morality are more numerous than the fragments that deal with his other teachings. Democritus makes a distinction between the soul and the body in terms of the shape of their atoms and considers the soul superior to the body. However, he never excludes the body. His understanding of morality includes a measured, rational and balanced understanding of soul and body. Therefore, it is based on the necessity that a person should not be carried away by his sensory perceptions and the pleasures he will receive from these perceptions, and that he should act with his mind. According to him, what is good is what is reasonable. This is what benefits man the most. The thing that benefits the most is the thing that gives a person the most inner peace and tranquility, because this is permanent beyond the transient pleasures of man. The most important thing that provides a person's permanent peace of mind or satisfaction is to think and act correctly in everything, in every event. The only principle that will determine this kind of thinking and behavior is moderation. As long as man adopts moderation, he will not go beyond the limits that nature has set for him and will not try to achieve things beyond his own power. Thus, he will reach a state of mind in which he will always feel happy. This shows that, according to Democritus, a person's happiness is only in his own hands.